Yeah, hello and welcome to another update video about Cardano. Cardano, we start to see another first green candle. It's yet too much or too early to really confirm that we have completed this dip yet. This might just be a bit of a correction to the upside before we see one more dip. But so far we've come really close to the price target already. Told you up here that what we could be seeing here, and that would be what I expect that we could see here, really an inverse head and shoulders pattern form. And I think this is what we're looking at here at the moment. So from here, because we were not able to push above that 126 level, so a very important resistance level, talked about here that this could become an inverse head and shoulders pattern, okay? And to retest here possibly the $1 mark, and we've come down to $1.05 or $1.04 even. So we've come really close already. My expectation would be that we even drop a little bit further, but we don't necessarily need to anymore. I mean, we see that inverse head and shoulders. Ideal target would be if we assume that this was already a full impulse, where you came up here from 75 cents, you made your first wave 1, 2, 3, maybe this was the 4 and the 5 here. Then you would expect here because this would be a first wave, then you would expect in a second wave the price to get down to at least the dollar level. Now we've come very close, but again, maybe this was not the completed first impulse yet, and the impulse will only be completed in the next wave up. And the reason for that is that this move down, we have not come below the wave 1 peak, and that would be the dollar level. So as long as we stay above this here could just be a fourth wave, and then what you would do is push once more up in a fifth wave. Now my buy order triggered, for channel members, I do publish my own buy orders. My buy order triggered here for Cardano, and I'm so far happy with that. Of course, I'm of the opinion that in these current price ranges, it is a good idea to dollar cost average in, and I have my buy orders published that will just trigger at certain areas where I believe the price can turn around with a high probability. These are sort of swing trading positions that I leave open until we really get to areas that will be very interesting. For example, then with Cardano, we're talking here about much higher levels of at least $4. Of course, I'm going to take profits before that, but this would be for the next larger wave up, the minimum target, $4, $4.50, but possibly even higher. Now, I would obviously take profits before that, but I will always dollar cost average in and dollar cost average out. I believe profit taking is so important because I know that a lot of people missed out on profit taking end of last year because everybody expected Bitcoin to go up to 100,000 US dollars and to take all the other altcoins with it. Now that clearly didn't happen. End of last year we talked about this upcoming correction. Now admittedly Cardano dropped more than expected. Typically I'm always told I'm too bearish, but for Cardano I haven't been bearish enough. End of last year I expected the correction already to be over at maybe around 145 it was, and then the next level was I think 125. Now we clearly dropped below that and went all the way down to 75 cents. So originally I did not anticipate that strong drop for Cardano. But yeah, I'm always told I'm too bearish, so here I wasn't, and still it wasn't right. Anyway, quite funny though. Nevertheless, we see this inverse head and shoulders here possibly play out. Could drop a little bit more, maybe to $1. But then what I always say, because I'm always getting the questions now, do you still expect the price to go to $1? Now, what you need to see, we already came down to $1.04 or 1.039, or what was it exactly? Let's take a look here. $1 and 1.039 basically. So I think really close. And typically what I do when I set a buy order for myself, or when I try to pass or when I try to grab a certain price at a certain level, and I know the price might come down to $1, for example, what I will do, I set my buy order slightly higher. For example, at $1.03, $1.04, $1.05, because sometimes these important levels, they don't get reached just by a minimum difference, right? And now my own buy order was set a bit higher, even, around $1.08. But in the end, if we go to $2, $3, $4, it won't matter if I bought at $1.08 or at $1.02 or at $1. Probably it is only a minimum difference in the end. And I like to set limit orders because typically these dips here, for example here this one, just an example, yeah, when we had a wick down to 93 cents, you will never be able to buy that manually. I mean, it will be very hard. So a limit order will be able to give you a chance to buy it at that price when the price only briefly goes down to a certain level, for example. Now, okay, so this inverse head and shoulders might now play out. Let's take a look on the hourly chart. However, can we expect more downside potential? And in my opinion, what we see here at the moment does not look too bullish yet. At least it's too early to say. So I think what we might do, we might come down once more. We're coming up a little bit. It might but just lead to a retest here around the $1.10, $1.11 mark before we drop down lower. That is currently what I do expect, but it's not guaranteed. We already came down quite a bit. And can we see already the momentum shift? So on the 1 hour chart, you already see the momentum go to the upside. Now it's only the 1 hour chart. It's not highly relevant, not in the time frames I'm normally looking at, but we can now already see the 4 hour chart adding positive momentum, or at least reducing the negative momentum. And again, not much surprise, because on the RSI, the price was significantly oversold on the 4 hour chart. Did get well significantly below 30. It did get down to 24, and if we're getting down to 24 on the RSI, this definitely confirms that the price was oversold. Even on the 8 hour chart, we got very, very close to the oversold level, which also explains here a little bit of a counter reaction to the upside. You can see that on the 8 hour chart now as well, that the MACD up here is starting to reduce negative momentum. Now it's still very early. And bear in mind, nothing moves down in a straight line. And on the daily, though, we had that bearish crossover. So here there is much more downside potential generally, but it is looking like that the Cardano price, and that is very, very, or the RSI, and that is very, very good, found support at the 50 level. So the problem that Cardano had throughout this whole period here since November, it was constantly, the RSI on the daily was constantly below 50, and all the moves up were fake outs. Now it seems like that the price finally managed to break above it, and I've constantly told you that that 50 level on the daily RSI is so important, because this really distinguishes here between a fake out and if it's really something sustainable. And it seems like at the moment that the price is finding support from above at that 50 level, and that is quite interesting and quite good. So the MACD is still pushing down, but the RSI seems to be finding support here on the daily 50 level, and the lower time frame indicators, or the MACD on the lower time frames, is already pushing up. So there's a good chance that we might actually already have seen here the low, but we won't really know, I think, until we pass or go through these previous resistance levels, or previous support, now resistance levels. So I'm looking here at $1.11. If we go above that, it will increase the chances to go higher. And then $1.14 for me is a very, very relevant level, because that 114 level was before very important support. It will provide resistance now. So $1.14, I think above that, it increases the chances to go higher. Then the previous rejection point at 121, but even more important is finally to get through this 126 level. That is very important. That is the next resistance afterwards, and that would also complete that inverse head and shoulders, because that is pretty much the neckline. But then above that, and this is really the level above which I will say that with a very high probability we are not going to go and see a lower low. This is the 163 level, that wave 4 high. Until we go to that level, there is still significant downside potential generally. Yeah, so I'm not really talking about here the very short term. What I just explained was the very short term, that we might have completed here this dip, yeah, and that we might push higher. But again, we need that confirmation ideally above 126 to move higher, have then a chance to move first to the 200-day moving average at 146, and then we're going to get, in my opinion, to that 163 level. That will provide significant resistance, and this is for me the level where above that I will consider that we have already seen the low. At the moment, generally, there is still a lot of risk that, for example, if Bitcoin does its final sell-off, which I still think is coming, that we could still come once more into this area down here. So the risk is still there. It depends to a degree on Bitcoin, but in my opinion, only as soon as we break above this 163 level, on a sustainable basis, then this downside potential is pretty much gone. So this is the magical level. We are still quite far away from that. Next main resistance or major resistance is here, that 126 level, but above that it is 163. But to get there, we first need to get above the 200-day moving average. So there is a lot of work to do for Cardano. And so far, we just have to say that there is still significant downside risk. Yeah, and to be honest, primarily, do I think that the low is already in? It is really hard to say at the moment. It is really hard to say. I think we are going to see at least levels which will come close to where we were before here, below $1. And the reason for that is my expectation of a final sell-off for Bitcoin. So, but that could be just a higher low, or it could be a lower low. That is what I don't know yet. Technically, Cardano doesn't need to make another lower low. It has done what it needs to do to complete the correction. So it all depends on what the bulls and the bears are doing now. Above 163, I think we have the upside confirmation. Until then, it is really, really critical still. And I'm still skeptical, but I still dollar cost average in because I'm happy to sit out possibly even lower levels, because I know that I will be annoyed if I don't buy at the current levels or even lower, that when we then finally go to $2, $3, $4, it will be too late. And I don't want to buy then anymore. So this is the time for me. I'm not telling you to buy. Yeah, this is no financial advice, but for me, this is currently the time, again, especially in a dip like that, to buy Cardano again. Now, that is my view here on Cardano. Hopefully you liked the update. If you did, please hit the like button, leave a comment and subscribe. And if you really like the content, then check out the channel membership. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.